Can you hear me now?
Got you, Larry. Welcome back
Great.
to F.A.C.E.
Great. Thanks for having me back. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and do you remember how to share your screen?
I do. I'm going to hit the share screen button.
That's it. So before you get going, Larry, I want to congratulate you on some great calls. There was a lot of fear in the market when you were getting long and talking about tech and some of the leaders that were going to take the market higher in the midst of this pandemic. So congratulations. A lot of blue chip calls from your blue chip daily.
Thank you. I
Nice work.
really
Nice
appreciate
work.
that. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, Dale.
So, you're only as good as your last trade. So, what now, bro? So, what are you looking at here? We're looking at Square. Wow, that's new all-time highs.
Yeah, we've got Square, so there's a couple. So I'm still positioned pretty much the same way. So tech was the strongest market. And the last time that I was on, I think we took a look at the NASDAQ 100, and that's where I started to buy. So I started with the tech ETF, and then I added Microsoft because tech of all the major markets had corrected the least. So that's where the
Yeah.
highest relative strength is. But where I'm seeing some new interesting ideas and something that I've been adding to our buy list over the past few weeks is some of these cyclical names. So companies like Carrier, some energy names, some copper names. The cyclicals. I think that this move in cyclicals is a real move. I don't think
Would they
it's a
be
head fake,
considered
and
value?
we've got some exposure there too. It would be considered value. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
and
So, are you a believer in this shift from growth to value? Because it's certainly been starting to, the worm has turned. You think it has legs?
I'm not a believer in the shift from growth to value per se, because I see a lot of these growth stocks, like these software stocks, are still very
Okay.
strong. The semiconductors are starting to break out. But what I do think that you're seeing is if the market starts to price in an economic recovery, which is what it's starting to do right now, then it's going to move into these higher beta cyclical stocks like these copper names and some of these names that got hit pretty hard. So I don't think that we're seeing a shift from growth to value right now, but I do think we're seeing a shift into the more cyclical names as the market tries to price in a recovery. So if you take a look, for example,
So it's a broadening out then of this,
yes,
which long term could be very, very constructive, right? The broadening out of this instead of just having a
egg,
concentration of five stocks holding up the market.
it'll be much more constructive because what happens is, like you said, if there's only a few stocks that are holding up the market and then the average stock isn't doing too well, then it's a pretty weak market. But if you take a look, so I'll just go through the charts because
Okay.
charts are my thing. So Southern Copper, which is obviously it's a very cyclical name in the copper industry. You can see it's just got a steady uptrend. So what I look for, and you probably know this from hearing me every day, is I don't get into indicators too much. So my charts are pretty simple. I'm looking for the price trend and I'm looking for the moving average trend. So if you look at Southern Copper, it's just a steady uptrend, higher highs, higher lows. The 200 days turned up, the 50 days turned up. So that's a very strong cyclical name. If you take a look at something like Fastenal, which is in the industrial supplies business, so these guys make things like screws and door handles and all kinds of just basic industries. This is acting like a growth stock. It's a
Yeah.
it's a cyclical industrial, but you can see this is broken out to highs. It's in a steady uptrend. Industrial metals, so XME, which covers copper, steel, other industrial metals. You can see obviously this sold off sharply from 29 to 13. But
Yeah.
since let's call this the low for now. So I don't predict if it's the final low or retest or anything like that. I just focus on what the market's actually doing. But if you look at this trend, it's very, very solid. So there's a lot of these cyclical names, even energy.
That was this one that you're showing is the weak sister comparatively. I mean, I look at it and it looks like a retracement move compared to others that have, recovered 61.8 or are at new highs. So I
Yeah,
just have a
something like
quick. Go ahead.
Carrier. So if you take a look at something like Carrier,
Yeah.
so Carrier and Otis were spun off from United Technologies.
Uh-huh.
And so Carrier, they're in the HVAC business, so air conditioning, heating, things like that. So if you're looking at, the cyclicality of the economy, when you see a stock that's in, building materials, AC units, and
Right.
HVAC breaking out the highs. So these are all bullish charts. If you look at Otis, which if you've ever gotten into an elevator, you've probably seen the
Oh
Otis name.
yes.
I
I've
mean,
been.
this is, these were spun off and
Okay.
just a steady uptrend. So that's in the industrials. But if you take a look still in growth, so semiconductors, SMH, I mean,
Yeah.
this is steady uptrend back over the 200-day, and then it broke out again yesterday. So I'm seeing where I'm looking for the breakouts. I'm seeing breakouts not only in software and semis and the traditional. I added some Facebook stock recently. And if you take a look at Facebook,
Yeah.
it hasn't had a close below the 20-day moving average going back to April. So, I'm seeing strength in both parts. Where I'm not seeing the strength is some of the more defensive names like the pharmaceuticals.
Okay.
I thought the pharmaceuticals were going to move a little bit faster, and they haven't. REITs are still struggling. REITs haven't really established an uptrend yet. But I'm just, where I'm seeing the uptrends is really still growth, but a lot of these industrials and cyclical names.
What was the name of that copper stock, Larry, again?
There was two of them. So Southern Copper is
Southern.
SCCO,
Okay.
and this has got the uptrend. But if you take a look at Freeport, which is the
Freeport,
major,
yeah. Right.
So Freeport just 50
starting.
days turned up, just starting to break out here. And if Freeport can get over the 200-day moving average and over $10, then $10 is a big number for Freeport. That could move. It moves fast once it goes.
Okay, so I know you're not a forecaster, and you just trade your. In fact, besides your moving average, Larry, you trade pretty naked, don't you?
Yes.
Well, keep your shades drawn.
Yeah, they're closed right now.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm really looking at the price trend. I could
Right.
almost take the moving averages off the screen, but the moving averages really help me out a lot.
It's your confirmation. But having been around for a while, this has been a remarkable recovery, and surpassing a lot of points that people that were bearish trying to short into this strength. But at this point, don't things feel a little bit stretched to you, having seen a lot of market cycles, this recovery? I mean, can't we have a correction of this recent rally, just like we had a correction of the crash?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I've got more cash than average. I'm still over 30% cash. And in hindsight, I wish I didn't have any cash because I would have made more money. But yeah, it's
Right.
Still volatility is still high. I look at the average true range. That's still pretty high in the S&P. The VIX is, I think, at 26, which traditionally that's 26 is pretty high on the VIX.
It used to be.
Yeah, it's not 85, so we think like, we feel like we've gotten a reprieve. But if you take a look at the VIX, it was trading in the low teens forever. So VIX is still high, ATR is still high. The news flow, and that's what the the wild card is the news flow. But it could pull back at any time. But what's been encouraging is every time that the market seems to pull back, they just keep bidding it up higher. There's a lot of liquidity out there. I think the number worldwide is over $10 trillion in stimulus that's out there. And
wow.
QE, once the central banks put all that money into the markets, it's definitely been a factor.
And it also has a lag time. Monetary policy usually takes 6 months or so. And well,
I think they started to pump the money in pretty.
December.
I think they got in with these repos and the QE pretty fast, and they all
Yeah.
went all in, and you know, it's a lot of it's based on, you know, what this healthcare news flow is, but the markets, it's been a strong recovery. There's no doubt it's been a very, very strong recovery.
Okay. You mentioned an oil share. We've had a real nice bounce from minus 38 on WTI to where it's doing here. What was the oil share that you mentioned? They
So
finally have started to turn, right? Okay,
yeah,
there you go.
there's a few. So I started to buy Exxon back in April, once it came over the 20-day moving average here. So
Hmm.
Exxon is just starting to break out. If we look over this range, it's about at a 90-day high. But some of the other names now, people have to be able to withstand a little more volatility in these names. But Halliburton is in a pretty strong uptrend. Now, most of these are still under the 200-day moving average, but EOG Resources, it's just a nice, it's just a steady uptrend. The 50 days turned up. A lot of these names, you know, there will be some shakeouts, but you know, we've been buying energy for about 2 months now.
How about the miners? We've recently had a pullback in. There you go. So, what's your take on that? Perhaps, you know, I don't think a lot of people were looking for this sell-off that we had up there. It was a nice little 3 drive to me, and I think gold might have another $100 to the downside or so. What do you think of the miners here? People starting to give up on them? Maybe back to 51 possible on Newmont. Newmont
You know,
led it.
you're right. So I've got the miners. I've got GDX, and this
Okay.
has been a pretty sharp pullback into the 50 days. So I was expecting to see it come a little bit stronger off the
Yeah.
50-day, but you've got Newmont, Barrick Gold also came right down to almost the same chart. You know, if you look
Yeah.
at where they are in the 50-day.
Yeah.
So in the shorter term, if they don't hold, you know, if Barrick doesn't hold 23, then
Yeah.
yeah, I think it probably comes down. I did expect a little bit sharper of a bounce here, and I couldn't tell you why. But the short term momentum is definitely to the downside. So I'm still holding this, and I'm
Okay.
looking for a bounce, but they haven't bounced the way that I thought they would coming off that 50-day. But like you said, they've had a massive move. You know, Newmont doubled
Yeah. Yeah.
off the low, but this is definitely, I think, a key point for the miners. A little bit weaker than I expected them to be.
How about interest sensitive stocks, utilities? You already showed REITs aren't really doing that well. Some of the defensive names that people were buying, they're getting rid of. So utilities, they don't look bad.
You know, I don't do anything with utilities.
Okay.
The only one that I've ever really had any interest in is Next Era, which is pretty big in the clean energy space. So you know
Okay.
they've got clean energy, solar, wind, things like that. So this has been
Hmm.
really the main utility that I focused on. But I don't have any utilities right now. I'm really more focused. I've got a lot of tech, and
Okay.
I'm starting to add, you know, some more cyclical, some consumer discretionary things like that.
Housing stocks.
You know, I don't have any housing yet, and
Okay.
housing is strong. The home builders, the home construction ETF is very, very strong. I don't have anything yet there. What I'm looking at more, I'm looking at Carrier, I'm looking at Otis, I'm looking at Fast and all. But these the housing stocks have been strong, even Home Depot and Lowe's and home improvement. And I've got to tell you that surprised me because you know the fundamental guy when I sit around and talk to my wife about things is
Yeah.
I wouldn't have expected with the employment market the way that it is. I
Right.
wouldn't have expected, you know, housing stocks to do as well. And that's why I try not to use my opinions because my opinions usually are, you know,
Yeah.
are off with, so I just follow what the market's doing. But yeah, these have
Yeah.
been very, very strong.
Yeah. I mean, you know, your friends and people you know that aren't in the business, how do you explain to them, Larry, that, you know, really, have we had economic improvement? not yet. How do you explain the disconnect of a huge run and recovery in stock prices compared to what we're going to be seeing with unemployment and all PMIs and all the numbers that we're getting? Don't be how what's the stock market? It doesn't make sense with what's going on. How do you explain that to laymen?
Well, you're right, and there's definitely a disconnect. So I stopped watching all the news. So I used to keep,
All right.
you know, I'll come downstairs and my wife will have like the local news on it, and I just, you know, after 2 minutes, I just don't want to listen to anything because it's all gloom and doom. And I used to keep, you know, Bloomberg on every day, but I had to turn the volume off because it's a lot of gloom and doom, you know, bad numbers. And what I explain to people, because I've got friends and relatives, is two things that I explain. I do think that all the liquidity is the biggest factor. I think that all the money that's been pumped into the system is the biggest factor. But the other thing is I think that the market priced in a worst case scenario. So when you look at Home Depot, it almost got cut in half in what, 5 weeks. So I think the market priced in you know, an end of the world scenario, and we're not seeing that right now. So I think the combination of, you know, maybe it's not as bad as we thought it was going to be, plus the $10 trillion is what I think you've got.
Yeah. So basically, tidal wave of liquidity that isn't showing in the real economy. So, you know, it's almost like, and you're a veteran, stocks never used to trade like this. They've been commoditized, don't you think?
Yes. The moves today. So I started in 98.
Yeah.
And the moves today are.
Oh, you're a youngster.
Yeah. But, you know, I've been through, so I was, you know, through the tech bubble.
Yeah, you've seen a few. Yeah.
I've seen a few, but the moves today, Dale, are the fastest that I've ever seen. This software shakeout last week where they, you know, shook out Shopify. And, you know, if you look at Shopify, I think it had like a 25% drawdown in 2 days. You know, Dockies, I mean, just all these names. And it was a tricky one because they opened it up on Monday. So I've got Shopify. So they opened it up at the top here. And then, you know, in 2 days, it's what, 160 points in 2 days. Now it started to recover.
Did it spike on earnings? Was it like buy the rumors, sell the fact type of deal?
No, it just, I think the earnings, and I'd have to look, but I think the earnings were somewhere back here. And it was just running up. I think it ran up a lot with that Facebook announcement that came out where they're going to partner up. But the surprising thing was they opened also all of these software stocks. If you look at that Monday, so DocuSign went from 136 to 1. This shakeout here, you know, if you've got stocks that correct 15 or 20%, that in the old days, that might have used to taken a few weeks or a month. Yeah. And now it's like 2 days, and before you know it, you know, you've got to have your head on a swivel.
I have a couple of issues from attendees that would appreciate your look. You have a view. Jack would like to know if you have a view on Boeing.
You know, I do. I really do. So I covered Boeing. I did a weekend video for my subscribers this week. I think that Boeing, the risk reward in Boeing here is very good. So if someone has a longer term perspective, then the risk reward, if I had this position, and I just talked about this last night online, the only reason I don't, psychologically, I don't do well trading, you know, below the 200-day in all this chop. I'm not mentally as geared for that as I am, you know, these uptrends. But if I just look at the risk, so if I called 120, so if I took Boeing right here, I've got $33 worth of risk. So I'd set my stop under 120, let's call it, right? So there's $33 worth of risk. And then on any recovery, I mean, if it gets back to this year's highs, you've got $200 worth of upside. So I think that
even back to 211, what's that? Your 200-day up there?
Yeah, 282.
What's the one at 211?
This is the 100-day.
Okay.
You know, and
that's
Boeing,
still a good R to R from here.
This is a stock that I look at every day, and I told my subscribers last night, my view, I may take the plunge on Boeing at some point, but I think right here, if someone can handle, the shorter term volatility, if I can risk $33 to maybe make, 133 or 233, I think it's solid math as long as they know there's probably, a 50-50 win or lose rate.
Okay, thank you for that. Look, Didier is asking for Glencore. Do you follow that stock at all?
I don't. I believe they're in industrial metals. Let me see if I can pull up a chart. So
There it is. Yeah.
I've got three. So let's see. So Glencore, it's improving in the uptrend, and this looks
Yeah.
a lot like the Freeport chart.
Yeah.
And this is another one. I think I'd want to have my stop underneath the 50-day, but I think this whole group is improving, and I think it's a good speculation.
Okay. Well, nice review, Larry, and some real good looks. If you'd like to show your website now, or if there's anything else you want to cover, there it is, the Blue Chip Daily Trend Report
Sure.
that Larry publishes.
Yeah, bluechipdaily.com is the web address, and if people go on to the recent best trade alerts, so what I'll do is I'll post, because I post every day on my Twitter feed, and then they can just see some of the chart work that I do. What the process is behind the signals that I use.
Okay, and I just have to leave you with a forecast from Dave Malum, who knows you, I believe, and he said, the great interview with Larry is really great, but please let him know that the trend on its Patriots has finally turned down. Are they under the two? Are they under the 200 day?
They are in a steep downtrend below the 200 day.
Are you hedged?
We're jumping on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers bandwagon.
All right.
I really think that the Patriots, they're going to have it. I think they're going to have a tough year.
I'll be happy just to see games.
Me too.
On TV, so
Dale, you hit the nail right on the head, my friend. I cannot wait for even a Tuesday night college football game from the MAC conference would be amazing right now.
Oh, did you go to a MAC school?
No, but I'm a big college football fan, and my son and I, Tuesday nights and Wednesday nights, we dial up those, Akron versus Central Michigan. That's good stuff.
Yeah, I went to Northern Illinois University in DeKalb.
Oh, sure.
So,
Great,
so
great team.
I
Michael
followed the
Turner
MAC.
came from there, right?
Yeah. So, let's keep. What a great way to wrap it up. Hoping that I would really know that there's a return to normalcy when I hear the pads.
Yes, sir.
On TV, Larry. So really, thank you again for coming, Larry. Great calls. I love your unemotional, detached looks and your moving average looks. And anyone who's a stock trader, I know we do mainly FX, check Larry out at bluechipdaily.com. And we'll have you
my
back.
Twitter. Can I give them my Twitter feed real quick?
Sure, you could.
It's at LMT978.
And why 978?
That was the zip code that I lived in at the time, and Tentarelli was too long to put in my Twitter handle. So that was the I'm sorry, not the zip code, the area code. Yeah. So I said, you know what? Let me shorten it, because people would say, hey, I can never find you because I can't spell your name. So I just made it, my initials and the area code, the phone area code that I lived at in Massachusetts at the time, and that was it.
Okay, and Didier, it's LMT, like Tom, not D.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Larry. Good hunting, and stay safe. And I guess we could keep trading even if there's martial law, right?
Dale, I'll tell you, I'm glad to be back. Thank you so much. You stay safe too, and I always look forward to talking to you.
All right, buddy. Everyone, that's Larry Tentarelli, and some good looks on individual issues. And that's going to be a wrap for us. And we'll see everyone tomorrow. Remember, don't just count your pips or your percentage gains. Count your blessings, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Adios. Thanks, Larry.
Dale, thanks so much. I appreciate it.